What's up, everybody? This is Post-Production Pie with SLRlounge.com. Welcome to another episode of Constructive Critique. This is where we take your images that you're submitting through the SLR Lounge forums, and to get there, simply go to SLRlounge.com to the forums, and then go to the Constructive Critique category where you can view and submit your images for critique, as well as critique other people's images. Now, once again, be sure to read the rules before participating. We've had a lot of people start posting links rather than embedding their images, and once again, I'd say embed your images in each thread and only post one image for critique per thread. All right, so let's get started. We're gonna go right over here to our first image. This is father and son submitted by Schneider. Let's take a look at this. So his name is Antonio, south of Brazil, took this picture in a cousin's house with the trusted nifty 50. You gotta love that lens because 50mm prime lenses, you just get awesome results. And the nifty 50, it's nifty. Why? Because it's inexpensive. I mean, it's a 1.8 lens for $100. Get great images out of it. Now, to get it more colorful and as sharp as possible, well, with the nifty 50, you're gonna have not so sharp images at 1.8, but that's okay. It's part of the look. Really, you got to step up to like the 1.4 or the 1.2 to get sharper images at that maximum aperture, the maximum width of the aperture. But anyway, let's take a look at this shot. Now, we do see that the forum is reducing the quality just a bit, which is why we say to upload to Flickr and then embed the image so that you don't get that reduction quality. But I absolutely love this image, from the pose to the lighting to everything. And it's such a cute kid, and the expression that he's making is so priceless. I love the overall composition that we have dad in the background kind of holding his son's hand. It's very much implied. We don't know that that's dad, but you kind of make that assumption. And the focus is really on the son. We have kind of a great frame with the dad's body and holding his son there. And it's all in all, it's just a really classic shot. There's nothing I would change about this. In fact, the post-production is even great too. So good job all around, Schneider, and keep up the posts. Let's go on to, by the way, I'm trying to move my mouse around less, or at least scroll less, because my editor is like, dude, you gotta stop scrolling around while you're doing these critiques because it's really hard to edit. So I'm gonna stop doing that. This, by the way, is where you link it to Flickr. So stop doing this. Embed the actual image so we can see it right here on the forum and not have to click over. But this image was submitted by Elitis, and he gives a little bit of information on how it's shot, including the lighting information, which is great. He shot it in RAW and edited in Lightroom 4. Now let's check this out. I dig this image. I think the lighting is great. I love the high key look on the white background. It's awesome. The only thing that I think holds this one back a little bit is the overall positioning of the child's eyes. Now, normally I don't really mind when the child is kind of like looking off the camera, but here it obviously is looking like you're trying, it's almost like we're trying to get his attention. It just went to the object that we're holding in the background instead of into the camera. I kind of either like it into the camera or way off camera, so it looks like it's very much a kind of candid and natural image. Whereas this looks a little bit like it was a posed image, just shot a little bit incorrectly. But from the lighting standpoint, you did a great job there. I love the setup. I love the post-production. I think it looks great as a black and white. And overall, it's a really nice shot. So that's it there. Let's go on to our next shot, which is Portrait of a Little Boy by Quality of Light. This is his favorite action shot from one of last week's portrait sessions. And this is an absolutely great shot. And what I would say is this: I love action shots where we can see a little bit of blur. You know, like we always try and get sharp images, but you know, having blur in these action shots, having some motion blur really adds to the overall kind of sense of action and adds to the overall scene and story that we're telling. Remember that photography rules are only basically rules and guidelines. They're meant to be broken when it achieves the look and the effect that you want. And for this image, it's absolutely beautiful. The fact that we can see his arms kind of slightly blurred in motion on each side, we kind of have this just a great sense of action overall. I love his expression, where he's looking, the fact that his hair is kind of bouncing, and he has beautiful hair, by the way. This kid could be like a little child actor or something. Anyway, so everything on that side is great. Now, what I would say is on the post-production side, color doesn't really do that much for me. And in fact, generally, or a rule of thumb again, is when you're shooting these kind of action shots, there's always one post-production style that works almost flawlessly with action shots that have motion in them, and that is black and white. Black and white would work fabulously on this image, and the other reason why is because we don't really have that much diversity in the overall color here. Most of the colors are falling into our reds and yellows, and there's not that much interest in the color itself. It's really in our overall subject and the child and in his motion and expression. Black and white is going to really pull all that into the center of the frame. It's going to allow us to focus on the subject, and anything that's really distracting in the background is going to be kind of diminished by that effect. Great job here. I love this post. Keep it up. Let's go on to the next one. This is Child Photography by Julia Emily. I don't know if I credited the last person, by the way. Oh yeah, I did. Quality of Light. Okay. Julia Emily. All right. Or yeah, I hope I pronounced that right. And well, I know I got Julia right. That's pretty simple. Anyway, this is a beautiful shot, Julia, and I dig the overall quality of this image. I mean, you can tell that it's tack sharp. You have great color. The background, everything in the shot is great, from the composition and everything. The only thing that I'm not digging about this is just that, you know, it's about the child and it's about kind of what the child is doing in this image, yet we can't really see the child's face. It's okay if the child's looking off the camera, but at least to be able to see the face. And right here, it's being concealed mainly by that hat. So that's kind of the main critique here, is that, you know, from a viewer perspective, and granted, if this is your own daughter, you know, this is a great shot and you should absolutely keep it. But from just a photographic perspective, as a viewer, when I'm looking at this, the main interest is not there for me, that we don't see the subject's face. So either looking at the camera or playing, but with the cap lifted off a little bit, or even maybe shooting a little bit lower so that you can capture that expression and capture the face, would add a lot of visual interest overall to the shot. But great job, and keep on submitting. I really dig the post look and overall how it was shot as well. So let's go on to the next image. Now, we did a lot of baby shots because we've had a lot of baby submissions. So keep it up. And here's another image. Wanted to mix it up a little bit, so we didn't do all babies in this one. But anyway, we have Phantom Ship in Crater Lake. And this is by Sandy. He says, or he or she says, I'm a complete beginner. I think I have many things to improve on. It'd be great if you can give me some pointers on composition, technique, and post-processing. Sandy, you might be new, but you got a great head start, and you're doing a great job, because you notice that in this scene, there's a lot of things that are working well here. We have fog and very interesting light. You can see that the light is coming from a directional standpoint, basically from a lower point on the horizon. We're getting beautiful shadows and kind of edging on all of the objects in the scene. This rock that's placed right in the middle, we get some nice shadows on the right side of the mountain. We also have this really nice kind of lighting effect created by the fog. It's very interesting to look at. And you know, that's kind of the main thing with landscape photography, is really making sure that you're shooting with good light, or with directional light, because it's going to add a lot of interest to the scene. If we shot with the sun that was directly above the landscape that we're shooting, everything's going to be very flat. It's not going to have a lot of kind of dimension to it, and we lose that. So great job in noticing that right off the bat. Now, as far as the composition, we're going with kind of a centered composition, which I don't know if is really the best thing for this image. You might want to try a different compositional approach. I love the mountains and kind of the background and stuff, and it'd be great if we kind of had these fading mountains leading into this object here, maybe on the left side of the frame. And then we had maybe less water as well, because really the main focus and the main interest in the shot is the clouds, the rock, and the water is part of it. I mean, it sets the scene, but we don't need to see that much of it to get the idea that this is a kind of a piece of floating rock in the middle of this ocean or lake or wherever you're at. Or Crater Lake, as you mentioned. And as far as the post-production, I would make sure that you correct this crop. I think one thing that's going to add a lot of interest just immediately, without, you know, having to go and reshoot this scene, is go with a panoramic crop. Crop like 2:1 and cut off the water like kind of somewhere around this area. That way, basically, you're just seeing kind of the fog. You're seeing this nice, interesting color with the great textures. And the next time in that scene, really strive for the more interesting composition if possible. If it's not possible, then hey, it's not possible. But if you can, go for that interesting composition, because if you had just an amazing wowzer composition with this shot and with this lighting, it would be an absolutely you know, publish-worthy image that you can get somewhere in some magazine out there. All right, let's go on to the next image. This is Okavango Delta by Machiavelli. Now this is a fabulous image. There's really absolutely nothing to say as far as critique goes on this. It's beautiful. I love the overall composition. We have these boats that are placed to the right of the frame. A lot of visual interest in our foreground, and that's exactly what you're looking for with landscape images. You want to have visual interest not only in the background and the horizon, but also in your foreground. We have that. In this shot, we can also see the sun, and we can see this beautiful kind of orange glow to the image, which is probably partly created by the overall scene and partly also enhanced in your post-production. So the post-production is fabulous as well. You got a straight horizon, great composition, everything in this image absolutely works. So great shot. Let's go on to our next image, and this is by Russell Hebert. It's Late Night Drive on Ortega. Now, I dig this shot, but I think for this type of image, you'd be better off kind of mixing a couple different exposures. If you have a chance, set it up on a tripod, take an exposure for the sky, an exposure for the mountain, an exposure for this cloud scene, and combine those to kind of create a nice balanced image. Right now we have a few really hot points in the image, like here in the clouds, and it draws a lot of attention basically away from the sky. Granted, if this is a late night drive on Ortega, you probably don't necessarily have a tripod with you, and so you're probably doing the best that you can in this type of shot. I'm not sure, so you can kind of tell us how it was shot. It'll help us to kind of understand a little bit better what we can critique and what we can mention. But I dig what you're going for, and the fact that you can see all these lights, it's incredible. There's absolutely no light pollution in the sky because you can see everything, including what looks like a shooting star off to the right here, which is pretty dang cool. So great shot, Russell, and let us know how it's shot. We can kind of give you a little bit additional critique as far as, you know, what to do next time as far as camera settings and everything like that too. Let's go on to our next image, which is HDR Sunset by Bloody Skull. That's kind of a gruesome name, but that's all right. It's a really nice shot here, Bloody Skull. And the only thing I would say is, for my taste, I don't really like to be able to identify an image as being HDR. Okay, so there's a few things in here that are just kind of classic signs of HDR that I'm not a big fan of. Number one is we can see basically this storm cloud effect on the underside of these clouds as you layer it, and it darkens the underside of the clouds. I'm not a big fan of that. And also the detail crunch that we get in the foreground from the HDRs. Right here in this middle area, this is actually where the image is looking pretty natural, and that's where I'd say I would produce the image to kind of be more around this arena for the entire image, as opposed to kind of going too far on that HDR side. But again, HDR is a very polarizing subject. You either hate it, you either like it, you either love the super candied look, or you like the more natural look. It's really kind of up to you as far as this goes, but that's kind of my 2 cents on it. As far as the overall composition of the shot itself, again, what you have here is a shot where the HDR effect itself is the only thing that's really making it interesting. We have great clouds, we have a nice like kind of scene to work with, but we don't have a lot of foreground interest here. You've placed the horizon directly in the middle of the frame, which isn't necessarily a no-no. Generally, you don't do that because, you know, you want to focus on the more interesting areas, but it is totally doable to place the horizon on the center of the image if that's the strongest composition. Let's say you're going for some sort of reflection or something like that. That's probably going to be the strongest place to put it, the horizon line, if you're trying to go for a reflection. In this shot, I'd say it's probably not. So overall, I would recommend when you approach this type of scene, find and shoot the scene as you would just if you weren't going to do anything to it, you know, in post-production. Let's say you're not going to do HDR, you're not going to do anything to it. Find the most amazing foreground and composition you can find, then go and decide if I want to shoot it as a bracketed sequence or if I want to shoot it just as a standalone image, and use the post-production to simply bring out what you've created there. Okay, let's go on to our last shot, which is this November Power Shoot by Ivani. Let's check out the thumbnail. And here we have a really nice portrait. Now, Ivani, obviously it looks like you know quite a bit about lighting, so I'm going to critique it from that standpoint. So this lighting effect in particular, I don't know if I would use it for this type of look. And the reason why is because this edge lit effect is generally used when we want to create a more dramatic and kind of more edgy look to an image. For this, we have a very soft kind of look to our model. We have a woman that's kind of in this gorgeous outfit, beautiful jewelry, really nice makeup, and it has a very soft look, and I try and light it with that look in mind, kind of keeping it more on the fashion side, using large modifiers like, say, a parabolic or say a large softbox like an 8-foot softbox, something that creates just a super soft light where we can see a nice low contrast look to the image. I don't really feel like this kind of lighting effect works, but again, this is really stylistic. This is what I would say typically is done for this type of scene, is we'd go with a much softer look. Now, the other thing too is that there's a few things that are a little bit distracting. One is that her right side earring is kind of in a weird shape because it's hanging on her shoulder. This is something that's going to be a little bit tricky to fix because it's really all about kind of the posing and where her shoulder is and her face is in relation to everything so that the earring doesn't actually hang on the shoulder. But from a visual standpoint, it draws a lot of attention just because of the strange shape. The other thing with the pose itself is that generally, if you're doing when we're doing, say, close-up shots of makeup, or if we're trying to really feature eyelashes, we're getting in a lot closer and we're kind of shooting, maybe top down, or we're shooting from a much closer angle to really bring a lot of that visual interest into the eyelashes. Here it kind of feels like we're a little bit too far pulled back for that type of look. So I'd say a stronger look in this would be to raise the chin a little bit, tilt the head a little bit towards the center of the image, kind of fix the arm so we don't have this widening effect on the arm right there, and then have her looking directly into the camera. Otherwise, I would probably shoot top down or get closer to the eyes and really try and make it more about the eyes and the jewelry than about anything else in the image. We have so much skin in this shot that is drawing a lot of the visual weight because skin naturally draws the viewer's attention to it. So that's kind of the critique I would give you on there. Hopefully that helps, and we'll see you all in the next constructive critique video.